Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 was released back in 2011 and served as the concluding chapter of a fantastic fantasy series full of great moments that took the characters to places the fans have never seen until this finale. Depicted as a war film throughout most of its runtime, critics and general audiences alike praised Part 2 for its fantastic action set pieces, concluding character arcs to some of the best characters in the franchise, as well as the revelations revealed leading up to Harry and Voldemort's final duel. The accompanying video games from developer EA Brightlight also needed a concluding game to end the series, and they could not wait to release some bullshit that addresses very little of what was wrong with the first game. Now granted, I will give credit where credit is due. This game is an overall improvement over the previous game. There are several places within the game's design that have been made better than what was presented in Deathly Hallows Part 1. In particular, getting in the cover feels so much better. It's a much more snappy and responsive mechanic than what was showcased in the previous game. The spells return here in a weapon wheel, but they've also been mapped to the face buttons, 2 each. Switching between each one is quick and easy without slowing down the action on screen, and the response time is rather improved from the first game. The enemy AI has also been improved here, as the computer will actually engage with the cover system at a consistent rate throughout the game, although you still have moments where the computer goes full retard and stands out in the open as you rain down hailfire upon enemy NPCs. But it's an improvement worth noting. Also, graphically, this game is a step up from the previous game, with emphasis on detailed textures on the character models designed after the actors from the movie, with plenty of radiant effects for the spells being cast on screen. And that's really where the positives end. This game, while an improvement, is still the same lazy, mediocre cover shooter that the first game was, and many of the core issues that was in Deathly Hallows Part 1 is still an issue here, along with some added problems that not even the previous game had. For example, boss fights. Boss fights are a newly added feature here for the most part, as there was only one true boss fight in Deathly Hallows Part 1 with Voldemort's Locket Horcrux. In this game, there are a few moments where you fight some of the most powerful Death Eaters from Voldemort's army, including Fenrir Greyback and Bellatrix Lestrange. But these moments aren't grand set pieces and typically revolve around spamming the same overpowered spell over and over again until the character's health bar is depleted to 0. The bosses completely fail to mix and change up their tactics against the player, with not much of an attempt to get the player to even move out and away from their chosen spot of cover. And the added goons on screen don't help to make these fights any more challenging. What's more, most of the combat counters, if not all of them, literally boil down to simple-minded shooting galleries where the player simply enters a point on screen to take down waves upon waves of enemies with no end in sight. Therefore, the game takes the strange gameplay direction from the last game and makes it worse in this one. This style of gameplay just simply doesn't fit the Harry Potter universe. Yes, there are moments where the characters take cover and fire what's akin to bullets at enemies, but it's never an endless wave of enemies, and the only scene where something like that happens is in the diner scene in Deathly Hallows Part 1. In fact, looking back at that scene, I blame this scene for these 2 disastrous games from EA Brightlight, assuming they took inspiration from this scene and attempted to stretch it into a video game concept. Even worse than the mindless shooting galleries in this mess, you have moments where the game wants you to take out a particular target in a very specific way, and if you play on the hardest difficulty like I did, the game will only allow you to pop out your head for 2 seconds before half your health becomes lost in a void. This forces the player to randomly shuffle through spells until they land on the one that the game wants you to use. Just brilliant game design from EA Brightlight. Because this is a video game, there are moments where the game goes out of its way to differentiate itself from the movie, because if they kept it just like the film, there wouldn't be enough content possible to justify a game release. That actually creates another monolithic issue where things happen that just don't make any sense. A good example is when Hermione and Ron go into the Chamber of Secrets to destroy another one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. In the movie, this is a straightforward affair. In the game, however, the size of the Chamber of Secrets is greatly exaggerated, and the game throws a bunch of giant spiders at you, which Makes no sense considering they're supposed to fear the basilisk. Even though the basilisk has been dead for years at this point, one has to think just how giant spiders made their way into the castle without anyone noticing. Also, the spiders in the series seem to be intelligent enough to perceive a potential threat. Who's to say that the basilisk didn't have any offspring, or that there would be other serpents living somewhere within the chamber? Why didn't they just give the player giant snakes to fight instead? That would have made more sense to me than generic spider enemies. Perhaps I'm thinking too deep about it, but that's what happens when you're subjected to a piece of fecal matter whose quality control is so below the bar that it begs the question of your sanity from start to finish. That's not to mention the annoying sound glitches I had to suffer through for the entire runtime thanks to the fucking emulated version of this shit.
With us. Hold it right there, Potter! You're coming with us. Why delay the inevitable, Harry? Panic? Fear? Terror? Run, Harry! Almost too slow, Harry! Run if you must! I will find you! We can play this game for a while.
You can't destroy the spirit of Hogwarts!
Then you have the moment where Neville and crew blow up the covered bridge. The problem here is that you're supposed to protect Seamus, who is on his own. The stage is separated into multiple segments. The issue is that you're so far away from Seamus to the point where nearly all of your spells are rendered useless. The game wants you to use Petrificus Totalis to literally snipe enemies at a distance. They put a sniping shooting gallery in a Harry Potter game. If that doesn't highlight what's wrong with this shit, then I don't know what does. There are collectible challenges that are available in the game which are just the combat scenarios that can be accessed in the main menu, but the player has to find them in the main game, and they're usually just kept within an open spot to where if the player wants them, the game will force you to exit your cover and get shot the hell up just to retrieve them. It's not even worth the frustration doing so, in my opinion. Finally, there's the moment where Harry kills Voldemort, or rather Voldemort kills himself because Harry is the master of the Elder Wand, which refuses to turn on its master, and I'm not going to get into the lore. The point is, this moment is handled rather simple, and it's somewhat effective, but because the rest of the game leading up to this moment is rather bad, the effect wears off quickly. I could go on and on and on, but I'm tired of talking about these games, so I'll just end it with this last comment. This game sucks. The movie is superior in every way. The end.